I'm Conan. Nolan, thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a great Sunday morning. As the war in Gaza continues, so too does the serious problem facing President Joe Biden and the Democratic Party, as younger progressive Democrats demand the president call for an immediate ceasefire. No preconditions, no returning of hostages, no removal of the Hamas government. And then earlier this month, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called for the removal of Benjamin Netanyahu and his government in Israel, a speech that seemed to get the tacit approval of President Joe Biden. One of the most Jewish congressional districts in the nation is California's 32nd district, which takes in much of the West San Fernando Valley and includes Malibu and Pacific Palisades. The district's congressman is Brad Sherman, who joins us from Washington. Let me ask you, there seems to be a growing rift between President Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu. You had the conversation, the speech that was made on the floor of the Senate a while back. Do you believe American Jews do not support the Prime Minister of Israel and want a new Prime Minister?
Look, American Jews are not citizens of Israel. We don't determine when they'll have elections or what their configuration will be. There is tremendous support in the American people for Israel, even at this difficult time. When asked whether you support Israel or Hamas, 80% of Americans and far more of American Jews said yes. That doesn't mean that most American Jews would vote for Netanyahu. Heck, it's a coalition government. He didn't even get a majority of Israelis to vote for him. But clearly there are aspects of Netanyahu's performance over the last 6 months that have caused a lot of Israelis and a lot of American Jews to have some concerns.
Based on how much money the American government gives to Israel, does it have any role in how Israel prosecutes this war?
We do, because the Leahy law, which is part of every arms transfer we make, requires that those weapons be used in accordance with the law of armed conflict. Now, that law doesn't say there'll be no civilian casualties or no horrific civilian casualties, but it does say that you try to avoid civilian casualties. And our number one expert in the United States government, the man who's chair of the Urban War Institute at West Point, has said that Israel has done perhaps the best job of any country trying to fight an urban war. But urban wars, there's a reason why Hamas didn't stay in southern Israel and fight. They instead retreated behind their human shields, because their objective is to win this war not militarily, but to cause as many civilian casualties as possible, then blame Israel for those civilian casualties. But the ratio of combatant to non-combatant deaths that we've seen in Gaza is far better than what the United States was able to achieve in the urban war that we fought in Fallujah and particularly Mosul, and let alone what we saw during World War II or Vietnam.
You have criticized the president for not questioning those numbers. The president has talked about the number of civilians that have died, but he doesn't talk about how many of those were actually fighting and are members of the militant group that is governing that body.
It's pretty clear that the number we're getting out of Hamas is 30,000 dead Palestinians. But that includes, according to Hamas, all of their dead fighters, and the estimate there is about 13,000. All of the Palestinians who were murdered by Hamas because they were political dissidents, and they recently put out another statement saying anybody who cooperates with Israel in delivering food aid is subject to execution. It includes any of the people that Hamas executes, as they often do, for being gay. And it includes every Palestinian that's killed by one of the Hamas rockets that falls to earth before it ever reaches Israel. And of course, about a quarter of them do. So I have not disputed the 30,000 figure, but we have to identify that it, according to Hamas, would include each of the categories I just identified.
Right. Why don't we hear that from the White House? Why don't we hear that from the Secretary of State?
I'm the only CPA involved really in American foreign policy, so I tend to look at it a little differently than perhaps some in the White House.
Donald Trump has said that Democrats are bad for Israel. I'm wondering if you've heard from constituents that are normally solidly Democratic, but are really concerned about whether or not Joe Biden is going to continue to back Israel in this conflict.
I've only heard that from people I know happen to be Republican. And I'll point out that Trump is the one who's standing in the way of us passing the bill that will provide $14 billion of aid to Israel and $60 billion of aid to Ukraine, and many billions of dollars, not only the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Ukraine, but also the one in Ethiopia that has killed far more people than those who have died in the Middle East. So it is Trump more than any other person that is preventing Israel from getting that aid.
Honorable Brad Sherman, Democrat of Sherman Oaks, represents the 32nd District of California. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me on.